Lots of video games in the modern day means lots of reviews, but often they can be upwards of 10 minutes. So with this series, I want to get right into it and talk about the one very best thing and one very worst thing in games. With that out of the way, let's get into the very best and worst thing in. Hollow Knight is the peak of what Metroidvanias can be right now. The genre obviously got its start with Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night, and most Metroidvanias you find will follow one of those formulas, perhaps even surpassing it. Then in the 2010s, we start to see a lot more creative approaches to the genre. Games started to specialize and go beyond the simple adventure formula with new settings or wacky movement. But in 2017, Hollow Knight comes along and says, hey, what if I had an even bigger world with more areas, characters, stories, and the very best thing in Hollow Knight, the bosses. There are over 40 bosses in Hollow Knight, and I would argue that none of them are really bad in any way. What's great about these bosses is that none of them are gimmicky in any way at all. All of them are fights where you avoid and strike when you have the opportunity. A good example of this is that the spell abilities you gain throughout the game are valid methods of attacking. They aren't worthless and weak, but they also aren't overly powerful cheese machines. I've talked about this before in another video, but in any given fight, it almost feels like you're a boss too, as you cycle through your nail and special abilities. The trick in making a good boss is that they should be relevant to the rest of the gameplay, but more importantly, it should feel like you have a fighting chance. Hollow Knight's bosses are tough, but they never felt overly difficult to the point where I just said forget it and stop playing. You'll want to keep coming back for more as you learn something new and master each fight. The best thing is that the game knows its bosses are memorable because it tests you in the boss rush pantheons from the postgame. The game has the audacity to have a challenge where you need to beat every single boss in the game back to back, but it's possible because you're given the opportunity to train against each boss individually in the Hall of Gods. Beating any one of these pantheons or bosses feels like a true accomplishment, but you can't talk about the bosses without talking about the very worst part of Hollow Knight, the Shade. Your Shade, along with all your money, is what you leave behind after death in Hollow Knight as you return back to your last save point. Lots of games do a similar thing with death, but Hollow Knight has a way of just being so mean about it. It's not blatantly terrible, but you'll see what I mean. First thing is that getting lots of money isn't that easy in Hollow Knight, and there's some crucial upgrades that require serious cash to obtain. Post-game is more forgiving, but it really sucks to make it all the way back to where you died last, just to be killed again by an enemy, or even your Shade, and lose all your Geo. Oh yes, that's right, your Shade will try and kill you too. It's not that hard to beat it and get your money back, but it still kinda sucks. However, the biggest pain happens when you die fighting a boss. Save points are placed so far away from fights sometimes that it can be tough to get all the way back to the boss without dying, and it discourages exploration as well. I might be inclined to come back to a boss later when I'm stronger, but then I would be leaving my Shade behind in the boss arena, so I guess I better keep fighting. I guess Horner would probably just tell me to get good, but I don't think the system had to be this punishing. In conclusion, Hollow Knight is great and you should play it.